This is the whitest girl I've seen this year. She lives in the United States and claims to be indigenous. What is going on? Well, we'll have to rewind a little bit to find out. A while ago, this tweet went viral where this lady argued against veganism being a moral obligation by pointing out the fact that zero indigenous groups practice veganism. I will address this reasoning, but first I should let you know that later on, this lady herself goes on to unknowingly debunk herself. And she does it in quite a hilarious manner. You don't want to miss that.
It's gonna be legendary!
We'll get to that, but here's my refutation. The fact that zero indigenous groups practice veganism has nothing to do with their indigeneity, but rather has to do with the fact that we live in a non-vegan world. It has to do with the fact that there is no ethnic group that is entirely vegan. Even the most vegan countries on the planet are about 8 to 9% vegan. Now, despite what white girl believes here, indigenous people are just human beings, whether they be the natives of North America or the Adivasis of Southern Asia or of the indigenous people of South Africa. So of course indigenous people are going to reflect the wider trends that we see in human beings in general. So her argument, which is based on idealizing indigenous people and prescribing behavior on the basis of that ideal, makes no sense. Now, we must see how she debunks her claim herself.
It's showtime.
You see, despite the fact that there are zero indigenous groups or any group of human beings that practice veganism, there are indeed individual indigenous people who do practice veganism. For example, me. This white girl espousing the soft bigotry of low expectations just ignores that. She just ignores the reality that there are indeed indigenous people who can reach the same moral standard as any other group of people. I point this out to her in a tweet and ask her to not use the suffering of indigenous peoples for her own greed. She then claims to be indigenous herself, which I found incredibly weird because she looks
Very white.
She claims that she is the descendants of the Picts, which is just one group amongst Scottish people. Scottish as in Scotland, as in the country that is part of the United Kingdom. Now, there's a lot to unpack here. Now, I know that I don't have to tell my audience at least that the natives of Britain are amongst the most privileged group of people on the planet. Anyway, this person is Scottish, living in the United States of America. This person is neither politically nor geographically indigenous. And of course, I point that to her as well. Her response to that was to say that everyone is indigenous, even if they don't live in their native region anymore, which is just weird. By that reasoning, everyone is indigenous to some place on the planet. So, according to her, everyone is indigenous. So according to her, every person who is in any vegan group is an indigenous person. So according to her, every vegan group is 100% made up of indigenous people. So if we accept her reasoning, there are indeed indigenous groups that are vegan.
Checkmate.
Now, there's another very important point in her original tweet which needs to be addressed. But first, we must discuss about why it would be politically meaningless to describe her as indigenous even if she were living in Scotland. It's because she is white and doesn't have enough melanin in her skin. Nah, I'm just kidding.
Oh, you had us worried.
The term indigenous is politically useful in places like North America to describe the natives of the place, to refer to the Adivasis in Southern Asia, and indeed to refer to the indigenous people of South Africa. This is because these regions have significant settler populations that have more privilege and political power than the natives of these regions. And by the way, settler doesn't just mean white people. Keep that in mind. Therefore, it makes sense to identify the natives of these regions and to make sure on that basis that they are not treated unfairly due to the political power held by the settlers in this region. If this difference in societal privilege and political power did not exist in the North Americas or Southern Asia or South Africa, it would be politically meaningless to draw these distinctions even in these places. Hence, it is politically meaningless to refer to white British people living in Britain as indigenous, because white British people living in Britain are not societally underprivileged, they are not politically underrepresented, and so on. Now let's get back to the white girl who made the tweet. Now this person doesn't just live in the United States, they're amongst the most privileged group of people in the United States, namely white British immigrants to the United States. She has access to the amenities that are necessary for her to be able to sustain herself on a vegan diet. Therefore, even if there were some indigenous groups that are not able to be vegan because they lack the facilities required, she certainly has access to those facilities. Therefore, she has a moral obligation to not participate in the torture and death of innocent animals. Now, I'm not letting indigenous people off the hook here. Check out this video to learn why indigenous people have to go vegan too and why that is crucial to the success of the vegan movement. What is also important for the vegan movement to thrive is for the vegan movement to have money, which is exactly what the sponsor of this video is aiming to do. This video is sponsored by r/vegan lobby. r/vegan lobby is a subreddit dedicated to raising money for the vegan movement, so that the vegan movement can stand a chance against the massive multi-billion-dollar animal agriculture industry. Check out the link in the description to learn more. Click here to support me directly. Thank you.